For those that don't know, I just got off live stream where one of the biggest upsets in UFC history has just gone down. Sean Strickland is your new middleweight champion of the world, right as the rest of the world was talking about Israel Adesanya potentially being one of the greatest middleweight champions in MMA history. Sean Strickland said, I'm here to change all that. I am going to throw a literal wrench in everything, and the UFC has maybe its most controversial, but surely the most underestimated champion it's ever seen. Why the breakdown? Let's go. Guys, you know I don't do a lot of MMA on this channel, but I'm looking to get more back into it because this sport is the definition of unpredictable. It will make fools out of all of us that try to predict it, try to analyze and say, this is what the probability says will happen, because Sean Strickland was not probable to win this fight. Sean Strickland was not even thought of as winning this fight based on predictions, based on analysis, based on averages, probabilities. This was going to be a walk in the park. Not the kind of walks that you take with your canines, obviously, but this was supposed to be an easy cakewalk for Izzy. This was supposed to be the filler fight because Dricus du Plessis couldn't fight as quickly. They were just going to stick Sean Strickland in here and then get back to the rivalry with Dricus. That's not what happened. In fact, Sean Strickland just bar for bar outstruck Israel Adesanya, one of the greatest strikers in the history of MMA. And Sean Strickland, the man that has one of the most odd and quite frankly indescribable offenses and defenses in the sport, just took him to school, gave him a boxing lesson, and made him miss more than anyone Israel's ever fought. He made him miss and he made him pay. Let's go through the entire fight because it needs it. First round, Sean Strickland very patient, walking forward, standing square, almost like a fucking UPS box, as he normally does in front of people. It looks goofy. It looks completely wrong technically, but it works for him. And Izzy's having some real trouble with just finding Sean Strickland's chin, finding any attack that's effective. And Sean Strickland used what I thought was his best feeler weapon, his best rangefinder. It wasn't his jab, and that became one of his best weapons, but it was his teep kick to the body. He was teep kicking up the middle with his lead foot continuously just to make sure Izzy felt something at range so that he wasn't able to just tee off on Sean while he stood there square. And as the first round went on, it was one of those Israel Adesanya kind of fights where he stays at range and kind of dinks and dunks, picks and pokes, outside and inside leg kicks, and he was throwing a lot of flashy feints, but nothing was really doing anything. And then all of a sudden, Sean Strickland found a home for his jab, one of his best weapons as an offensive fighter, but it was the setup. It was the precursor for the saucy Strickland, as I now call him. Christian showed the picture of him holding the Hennessy. He was saucing on Israel as he jabs, and then the right hand over the top rocks Israel Adesanya and puts him down. We almost saw Israel stopped in this first round as Strickland swarmed on him, landed big shots. Izzy got back to his feet, looked over while he's covering himself and tells Mark Goddard, hey, I'm okay, I promise. He was not okay. Strickland was all over him. First round goes to Strickland, hands down. It was a statement and potentially changed the rest of the fight. Oh, right hand, Sean Strickland! Oh my God, he hurt Izzy! Oh my Lord! Izzy gets back to his feet. Sean is wailing on him. Left hands from Sean Strickland. He tells Mark Goddard he's good, but that was a huge shot. Oh my God. No way. Strickland lands a right hand. Whoa. Now you can say that moment, plus potentially some of the trolling around Israel's Chinaman and dog fetish things that happened in the pre-fight were what got to Izzy in this fight, but you also have to give credence to what Sean Strickland was doing in there. He made Israel super inaccurate with his defense. It was a Philly shell that Sean holds he's got a wide shoulder base. He holds his shoulder super high, takes shots here, bat shots down. The head kicks, they weren't landing. In fact, they weren't even close to landing as Strickland was catching a lot of it or letting it bounce off his shoulders, his hands, his forearms. Things were just not getting through, and it was a puzzle for once that I've seen from Israel Adesanya he wasn't able to solve, and that speaks volumes for the fight because Sean Strickland, just as a human being, is one of the most puzzling people you'll ever see as a professional athlete. But when you solve that puzzle and you get down to it, people forget this mother can actually fight. And not only can he can fight with the best in the world. The Alex Pereira fight, I think, made people, and maybe myself included, look at Sean Strickland as an afterthought in this division at the top of it. But again, what he did tonight versus Israel Adesanya is not only one of the greatest upsets in UFC history, but it's actual fighting ability that shut Izzy down throughout this fight. But as we go to round 2, Izzy had a better round here. He was a little bit more switched on. I think the knockdown did that to him. If we would have saw round 2 Izzy the rest of the fight, it could have been a little bit different, but he was very aggressive coming forward, and even here, he was able to land a little more than Sean, but I still thought Sean had a great second round, and you could say he landed the bigger shots here as well. Even if he didn't land the same volume, you could still argue that the shots he landed were more damaging. But again, it was another low output round for Izzy, and even lower output for Sean, and you started to get the feeling, oh no, is this going to be one of those fights where Izzy comes back and makes this a decision based on the lack of output from Sean? And that was the case in round 3 as well, where once again, Izzy outlanded Sean, but Sean landed the more damaging punches. And you could have at that point said it was 2-1 Izzy or 2-1 Sean Strickland, but in your mind, all you could think was, here's the Yoel Romero fight again. Here is where Sean, after having a massive moment in round 1, gets overwhelmed by feints or potentially just by the moment and gets lulled into this game where Izzy can pin and poke from distance and get himself a decision and walk out of there holding the belt. But Sean Strickland's corner had one of the best corner advice moments in the middle of that fight when it really could have turned and teetered back toward Izzy. They looked at Sean and said, we cannot let this happen. He will fight like this all night. You have to put it on him. You can't fall for the snake charm he's pulling. One of the best things I've ever heard as a corner advice. Like, that is what Izzy does to people. He'll play the flute, you'll get lulled into the music, and all of a sudden rounds are going by and you're not landing, and he is. Maybe it doesn't feel like he is because he's not hurting you, but in those moments he's scoring, and it becomes just overwhelming on the judge's scorecard. But that all changed when, once again, Sean Strickland comes back in round 4 and starts to take over. Again, giving Izzy a boxing lesson with his jab, just sticking it on Izzy. And one of the things Israel Adesanya really struggles with defensively is only bending at the waist. He has a lot of great head movement, and even early in this fight, he was resetting the action by sliding out of range and, again, working his angles on Sean and trying to just reset and get going with the combinations and get going back into range again. But he was really having a hard time figuring out Sean's jab, and as soon as Sean would touch him with it, it affected Izzy. He would go back on the cage, like squared up, and not moving side to side like we normally see, but just kind of shocked for a second. And then he would get back into his movement. And again, in round 4, you saw more of the same. The jab, the teep kick to the body, and then the right hand, the hooks, thumb down, coming across from Sean. And again, Izzy just not being able to make reads or see things. Sean was doing so well defensively that even when Izzy wanted to counter, everything was being caught, boom, on the shoulder, hand high, everything. And then the jab would just stifle all of Izzy's forward motion, stifle all the combinations, stifle the rhythm for then Sean to be able to go back and work just 2-3 punch combinations. So if Sean wins round 4, at that point, you could see it being 2-2, 3-1. I think they had it right with the 3-1, because then in the 5th round, Sean comes out again with great corner advice, like go and solidify it. Now is the time. We're in Australia. We don't want a robbery, whatever. Go and put the stamp on this motherfucker and win this thing. Sean did exactly that. Comes out in the 5th round, and once again, walking forward. There is no room to breathe for Izzy at this point. For all of the angle switching and all of the sliding back and forth and trying to switch stances Izzy did in the first few rounds, Sean was just not moving away from him. And in this round, it paid off. He was standing in front of Izzy, and Izzy was just getting caught in space. The jab catching him, the right hand catching him, the combinations. And as the round continued to go on and Izzy just did not have any answers, when Izzy tried to throw back, his percentage of landing in this fight was something crazy low, like I've never seen, especially to the head area. 20%, 18%. No one has made Israel Adesanya miss like that, ever. But Sean Strickland did tonight. Again, his defense and his jab led the dance. He was giving a boxing lesson. But as those minutes and seconds ticked down in the 5th round, you started to see the realization on Sean's face that he was about to become the middleweight champion of the world. And he starts screaming in the face of Israel Adesanya, "Come on! Come and get it, Izzy! Come on!" I think he even called him the Chinaman one more time. He started to realize it. He started to understand what he had just done, and the fruits of the labor had paid off for Sean Strickland in one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. Time runs out. The crowd goes crazy. They give Sean the belt. 49-46 unanimous decision over Israel Adesanya. Complete and utter victory. This man is the middleweight champion for the people. He is. He has an audience that is a groundswell of support for him. He's always been truly him. Whether you liked him or not, whether you agree with him or not, he is now, at least in front of our eyes, become the person he's always wanted to be. When you say Sean Strickland's name now, you better back it up with middleweight champion, because he just pulled off one of, if not the greatest upset in UFC history. Sometimes the underdog, no pun intended, actually wins. This is why we love the sport of MMA. Unpredictability breeds moments. Tonight was one of those. I don't know what happens for either guy next, but guess we'll find out.